Well, hey YouTube, it's Thursday, September 2nd. Get you caught up on the CJ2A project. All I can say about transmission, needle bearings. It's back together, and I've got one gasket that I need to find for here. And then here is the rear yoke bearing. And it took a lot of effort to get that out. The bearing puller broke, so I had to use vice grips and channel locks and everything. So, and then I've got to clean up the speedometer and emergency brake lever housing there, get that painted and get that back on. But it turned out pretty nice. And luckily, the dust cover for the bells housing, both of the holes are clear. So I think in my original video when I showed you, there was a missing bolt prior to teardown. Well, I think the bolt was just fell out or whatever. Probably didn't have a lock washer on it or something. So, but it is pretty much ready to go back in the chassis. I do need to again replace that bearing. And then I'm going to go over that again because I missed a spot on that last little groove on the emergency brake. And then I've got the actual plate, the brake plate, soaking, and I'll get that cleaned up and wire brushed and then paint that as well. So that's just the last couple items to put back the transfer, tranny, and the bell housing. Update on the rear axle. Did order the replacement pinion seal and the new bearing that's going to be pressed on the pinion, and then the carrier bearings actually came in right over there in those boxes, and I got the bolts for the ring gear to go on the carrier, but called today and found out that the ring and pinion 4.88 gearing is on back order, so it's anticipated to get here by the end of the month, end of September. So this is going to sit here for quite a while until I get that ring and pinion and that other bearing, and then of course the seal, and then I can get that taken back apart and replace those gears. Engine's prepped, got it soaking in PB Blaster, and probably get into that this weekend, if not tomorrow, Friday or Saturday. And then there is the dust cover that I painted, and then I got the dual-matic hubs put back together with the exception of the hub seal for each one. And then the little lock washer tabs, I'm missing 5 of them, so I'm gonna need to go to a hardware store and get some of those. I'm not gonna put those bolts back in without having those lock washers with the little ears to bend up to keep them from coming out, because I want to torque those right and leave them alone. I didn't want to share CLR. Comes in a gallon, it comes in a quart, you can get a spray bottle, but that stuff is absolutely amazing. If you soak your rusted parts in that, in a little cup, it will take 99.9% of the gunk and the rust off. It's not as new in the cup because I've used that, but it's working fantastic. It almost works better than the carburetor and part cleaner. So it's a trade-off on cost. This is a little bit, by a couple of dollars, a little bit more expensive than the CLR, but I think the CLR is a little less harsh. This has a really powerful odor, but the CLR does not. And so that's one of the other benefits. I've got a bunch of rubbing alcohol, and what I use that for is prepping the metal prior to painting. Don't use mineral spirits, don't use lacquer thinner or anything like that. Just dollar store rubbing alcohol and a rag. Just wipe it on the metal, let it wipe off, get all the dirt and the grime off. Oh, photobomb by Adamaya over there, and also Althea. Good evening, ladies. So, and then one last thing over here on the workbench, I will show you. This is one of the most crazy things I've seen, is the gaskets for the transfer case I need to still put in there. Take it back apart because it's painted. But the bell crank. So This particular model is the smaller 3/4 sized bell crank shaft that's in the frame over there. And it's got 2 bearings. And those bearings sit inside here. And when I went to take them out, the top just broke off. It was so rusted. There's no seals on top of there. And there was no dust boot. The bottom little flange is fine, but they are so thin and brittle, I can almost pinch them with my fingers. Now that's pretty dangerous, considering that this is one of the primary things that keep your steering aligned. And so I was able to get those out, and the way I was able to do it, I think it was a 16 or 17 millimeter long socket. Stuck it right down in there, set it on a piece of wood, kind of at an angle, and just tapped on it. And they finally shot right out. I did take the greaser out because I thought maybe that was sticking too far in, but it was not. But got that all cleaned up nice. I got to get a wire brush in there and polish it out and get the crud out of the zert hole. But I bought the rebuild kit for the seals, the bearings, the replacement zert, the shaft, and the thrust pin that goes in the frame. So that's on its way. Just got the FedEx tracking number today. Back order on the Brake Master cylinder bolt. Got the crush washers there. And then I've got the remainder crush washers that will go on the residual brake lines that are not put on. The rear brake hose to axle and the front brake hose to axle. And then back ordered as well is the brake line kit, preformed for the frame. And we did get the front axle back down, ready to go in, but I can't because back ordered left-hand shackle for the driver's side. So I don't want to go any further on that. So I'm going to hold off and take a break. And like I said, everything is pretty much as a standstill waiting on parts. Once the parts come in for that, I'll finish it up. And then I'm gonna go ahead and tear into the engine and see how that looks. So the next video, we'll see the engine starting to be broken down. And we'll see what's inside there. See what kind of condition it's in. How far it's been bored out. I'm sure it's been rebuilt just because the color of the paint. And we decided that factory rebuilt engines in the Willys were painted red. So I found Ford red, and I'm going to confirm that color just to make sure that's the accurate tone and tint. But it's a little more orange than the engine stand red there. And I think that's really going to make it pop in the engine bay with the black and with the hoses and the radiator and everything. It'll just stand out and just kaboom, there you go. It's been rebuilt, it's back to specs, and there we go. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to end today, and I'll pick up in the next couple of days when that engine head is off of there and see what we find inside of there. Pandora's box. Have a good evening. Stay safe out there. Take care.